If you're listening to this message, you will know that co-working is a last human oasis of connection available anywhere in the new world of work. But seriously, I don't think I can sit through another AI anything at this stage of the game, but here we are. And I'm not looking to land spaceships on Venus or vibe code my child's blood type or manifest a seamless integration with my neighbour's fridge. I'm looking to get through my workday and stay alive. And I imagine a lot of you are like me. I just want to know how AI can actually help me do that. So one of the things that comes up in our podcast today with Carlos is don't ask AI to do anything. Start with something you're already doing. So I'm not going to ask AI to make me a hit record. I'm going to ask AI to help me with a podcast intro. So all these little processes and things you already do, feed them in one by one. And we'll go into that more in the podcast. And it is like as simple as that, but it's also really complicated at the same time. So that's why I asked Carlos along today, because he writes a really good newsletter on AI and co-working, and each kind of edition is a lesson in itself. And he writes about this stuff and I don't. So that's why I got him in to do this with us today. And there's a link in the show notes to that newsletter. There's also a link in the show notes to the European Co-working Day, which is on May the 6th, which is sometime where this podcast was published. And also there's a link to the LinkedIn co-working group and all the events that are going on there. So you can find this podcast on the London Coworking Assembly website and also in all your favorite apps and gadgets and bots or whatever you use to listen to your podcast. So that's enough of me. Let's get into the show with Carlos. Hello, folks. It is another Co-working Values podcast. And I've got this amigo called Carlos in the studio today. Carlos, what are you known for and what would you like to be known for?
Hi, Bernie. Thanks for having me. It's great to talk to you. So, just for everyone to know myself a bit. So, I'm Carlos. I run this Coworkings AI newsletter that we started a few months ago, but also the co-founder at Nexudus, co-working software that's been around for 13 years now.
So I'm sure you get asked this all the time, so sorry to be so boring. Like when you and Adrian started Nexudus, you didn't, can you do the little origin story? Because you were doing, was it e-commerce software and then pivoted, as we say?
It's been a while, yeah. But when we started Nexudus, it was 2012. And at the time, the industry was, the co-working movement was very small. We had a couple of friends that they were to start a co-working space in South Spain, co-working company. Talking to them at that point, we were doing e-commerce, like an e-commerce platform for people to set up online shops. Talking to these friends, we identified the need of like a tool for them to automate some day-to-day operations so that they could spend time or more time with their community, which is at the core working spaces. And that's how we kind of started the co-working software. Over the years, kind of became a co-working platform that then connect to all the system. There's a role in these type of buildings, from access control, Wi-Fi management, printing management, and so on. So yeah, that's in a nutshell the journey.
And when I always like asking this to people like you, when was the first time you went to a co-working space?
The very first time I went, that's a good question. I think it was to this space in South Spain before we started the co-working software, because at that time we put together the space with the community. So the community, the friends and such, they help like assembling the furniture and such. So we spent some time there before they opened. And then I moved like a few times to different cities, so I always tried to work from a co-working space. It was a good way for me to get to know people as well when I moved to a new city. So I did that in Madrid, when I moved to the UK, when I moved to London as well.
When I came to live in Vigo and I went to a co-working space, I was terrified, and totally unnecessarily, but like I know everyone in London, not everyone, but I know what I'm doing in London. And I have spent years saying to people, whenever you go to a new city, just go and find a co-working space and go native, get involved. And I know it was easier to jump out of a plane without a parachute than it was to go to. I ended up in Fento co-working, which was lovely, and all my anxiety was totally unnecessary. But when you moved to another city, how did you feel about? Was it easy for you to just rock into a co-working space and go, "Hey, it's Carlos. Hi, kids."
I think I was lucky in the sense that the co-working spaces that I joined, they were relatively small and they had this tight community where, for example, I remember I moved to Madrid. I was in London working. We would have lunch together every day. So that helps. I mean, you get people around food. It always help to get to know each other. And from that, we were to start like going to play basketball together or just meeting on the weekends and such. So it was a very nice community. And then when I moved to the UK, I think I started co-working hot desking. So I wrote an article recently about hot desking because it gives you this, because obviously, I mean, you are with people that you don't know, but then you break the ice and you start just talking, and then you realize that you have more in common than you thought. So yeah, there is a bit of tension, but yeah, it's the moment you break the ice, it goes smoothly and naturally, I think.
We do that we have a pop-up. I mean, there's co-working spaces here in Vigo, but we have a pop-up co-working thing. Me and a group of people called Live Galicia organise, and it's the first time I've done proper hot desking for ages, and I really love it because you never know. Like the way we run that pop-up thing, there is a group of people that come every 2 weeks, but there's also, you never know who's going to be there. It's a really good way to meet new people. And that eating every day, I think that's in Fento, we would do a bring and share lunch every day, and sitting down with like 10 to 15 people where everyone's brought something to share. Is that a Spanish thing, or is that we just lucky in the places we ended up in?
What, eating together, you mean?
Eating together, everyone sharing food.
And yeah, I mean, you could say, I think, that we do that in Spain quite a lot. You share food, exchange recipes as well, your masterpieces.
Yeah, the tortilla recipes. So when
So
I'm sure it's in one of your newsletters, like when someone joins a co-working space, there's this like I'm going to call it First 90 Days, which is the name of a book, which has nothing to do with co-working, but I'm obsessed with this like 90-day window. And what, in your experience of like jumping around and working with co-working spaces, I think there's something to do with that 90 days about how we land in a co-working space and then whether we actually end up staying or not.
definitely, I think, I mean, to me, maybe 90, maybe 60, maybe 30 days. I think in the first couple of weeks, you can get a sense of how the space is, what are the dynamics. So I think to me, or at least the experience that I had joining co-working spaces, the community manager or the operator running the space, it plays like a massive role on those 60 or 90 days. So the first thing that I like, for example, like joining, I remember when I joined the first co-working space that they introduce you to the community. So the first day at least you hear the names, the faces. So the next day you can start starting conversations out of the blue because you're being kind of introduced. And then it's more like a natural process, but I think it's important to get to know the space, the community that you're going to find there. What are the dynamics? What are the expectations as well? I remember this induction. I mean, I think that happened to me in most co-working spaces that I joined, but they take you through the space. When you get to the kitchen, they explain to you how you need to clean after yourself. And yeah, I think the team is like a big role on that experience. And I agree that the first 60, 90 days are critical.
I just shouted out 90 days. I don't want people to go away and think there's a 90-day framework available. But there's so I don't know how to ask this. Like I'm going to introduce it like this, Carlos. We did this London Coworking Assembly quiz last year, which was 51 people filled it in, and I thought that I just wanted to get a gauge of how people used AI. And obviously some people are like, totally into it and automating everything. Especially there's a freak, thread of people who were really good at using Zapier or Zapier beforehand, of just great at using whatever AI gadget. But a lot of people, and I'm being very general there, folks, kind of use it to write social media captions. And when we asked, I phoned a few people up, even probably some people listening to this, and say like, so what stops you? And they said, I haven't got the time to work out how to automate everything. And there's so much noise in the universe. It's just easier to keep going as I am. And I think that's pretty accurate. And like with your newsletter, who are you writing it for? Is it enterprise dudes, or is it, local things? Because there's a lot of information in there and it is really useful, but how do we get to it?
Yeah. I mean, for us, letter itself was a way to cut that noise, as you said. So there's a lot of things going on around AI. I started the newsletter with a friend, so we've done some projects together. We talk about AI quite a lot, but then we found ourselves in this. Okay, there's this thing that is new. Next week there is another thing that is new. So how these apply to co-working in particular. So we wanted to somehow find those signals and kind of translate those signals into something that us, but also co-working operators could use. You'll find on the newsletter from this to specific trends that can apply to the co-working industry. So it's not so much meant to be for like a specific segment, the co-working industry, but for people that are trying to get their way through the noise and find the signals
That feels
of these technologies, which, in my opinion, I think there are two kind of trends at the moment. One being, some people tend to think that this is like a magic potion that is going to sort out. Some other people think that this is just noise and they need to ignore it. In my opinion, the answer, at least to me, is in the middle. So it's a technology that is here to stay, but it's not something that is going to sort out everything, right?
Because when you said they're working their way through the noise, it feels like kind of hacking through, which is my experience too, like hacking through a forest with a quite blunt machete to get to the food on the other side, or I don't know. And one thing I did early on is I just went, I'm only going to listen to these people about AI, and that was Kofi, and there's Tom, who I know you met, and there's another writing group I'm in, and it was so tempting and I'm a one-person operation, to get into everything. And then, I don't know, when they say like, use these 10 prompts to 10x your $1 million business in 15 seconds, like what, and then which application to use and stuff like that. And there's something about when everyone in the world has access to whatever their AI tool is, the mainstream ones, which are about $20 to $30 or pounds a month. Like, what do people do with that?
I think, the scenario that you mentioned for the one person that is running everything, it could be even easier to get into AI. I'll explain why. So when you are running all the processes, imagine your co-working space, you're running the space from, selling the space to welcoming people and such. So you know your processes, you know what they're following. The moment you scale up in size, in teams and such, those processes can get scattered, and it's more difficult to align the team and such. But when you know your processes, a good starting point is, okay, with all this AI noise and such, it's a good moment to pause and say, okay, I'm going to review my processes and see if it makes sense and where it makes sense to try to use AI to, for example, automate some repetitive tasks or make some processes a bit more efficient so that I can dedicate my time to some things where I add more value, if it makes sense. So I think before starting thinking in any tool, because at the end of the day, you have like so many options, and you can end up with, I don't know, 10 tools on top of a process that you were just running yourself, and it was fine. I think it's a good moment to just rethink or review the processes that you have in your space. And then if I were AI could help. That at least is my experience and what we are doing internally as well.
So it sounds like, tell me if I'm wrong here, it sounds like you're saying don't only go to AI in a work context, only go to AI with something you're already doing and ask how to improve that. Don't turn up and say, how can I 10x my space to, I don't know, like ask it to do something you're already doing is what I meant to say.
So I think the best, or at least in the best way, I think is to start with AI is to start with something that you are already doing, not trying to implement like a new process or a new tool into something that we are not familiar with. So let's say, for example, you're replying to customers. So in your community, that's a very specific use case and very well known. No? You have a help desk where people submit like questions about how do I connect to the Wi-Fi, how do I print this document, etc., etc. And you get those questions every now and then, and they are always the same. That's a very good use case for AI to come in, automate the reply, so that when they ask the next time, you don't have to reply. And that will save you some time. Same goes with replying emails about the same topic already. Or looking at the data. One thing that AI can do really well is surfacing data that might not be obvious, especially when you have like a space that is bigger. So looking at the data in granularity is quite difficult, and that for that AI is quite good. So it can surface patterns and trends that might not be obvious on the first place. And yeah, I think applying AI to something that you are familiar with and you know your process is, to me, the best way to start. Then also you can spot.
It's a different type of data to what you're referencing there, but I do loads of research, and Google Notebook is phenomenal for that. And people like Marco Aurelio can send me academic papers, which would be so hard for me to digest. And I put it into Google Notebook, chat with it, I make podcasts about it. And then like with your newsletter, like that's how I consume, sorry to consume, but that's how I interface with your newsletter, is by making it into a podcast, and then I listen to things, and then I can chat with it. And it is just, but I think this is great for anybody, but for me, being dyslexic and ADHD, that has been life-changing. Before I forget, so you said about automating responses and stuff like that, a constant, thing that comes up is like, particularly for people who have smaller co-working spaces, is I don't want to lose the soul of my space. If I automate everything, I'll just be, some sterile, clinical, detached thing. And I'm sure you've got something to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the argument in this case would be that if you are replying manually emails or the same question over and over again, you don't have the time to spend on the floor with your community. So one thing that AI cannot get is talking directly to your customer. The AI cannot feel the space. It can feel the dynamics or the vibe of the space, but it can free up time for you to talk to your members, to have a coffee with them, to understand and to read people, because obviously it's when you talk to people face to face and when you have that relationship is where you can build that community within your space. And for that, I think automating things is useful, to dedicate more time just to spend talking with your community.
It's because then in any community context, there's people will email you, they'll WhatsApp you, they'll Slack message you, and all the different ways people communicate. And sometimes those will be, I hate you because the Wi-Fi is broken again, or I love you because that event you did was life-changing. And what do you do with all of that to help you understand the pulse of your community, or what can you do with that? Because people message me in loads of different ways around events and podcasts and stuff like that, and I've kind of learned how to organize it in my context. But if someone came to you and went, Carlos, what do I do with all these? What do I do with all this information? Because there is something to do with it.
Yeah, I think on the last number that we published in the newsletter, there was an example where we built this sentiment based on the messages that your community sent to you. So you can populate that into an AI, and it builds like not only the sentiment, the community or different people within the community, but also it gives you can brainstorm ideas. I think one of the things that all these models changes the way you interact with technology. So you mentioned about being conversational, and I think that's a big point, as in you can just talk to the system and say, hey, okay, you gave me this idea, why should I apply to my specific case? And then there is some comfort and you ended up like with some action points. But it's very good at building this sentiment analysis based on messages. So I think on the next number that it's to happen this week, we are expanding on that as well. So if you have that data, I think AI is good analyzing and helping you to understand and surfacing patterns and trends or possible issues.
So like attached to that is, and this took me a long time to understand, is like the context is everything. And when people like Kofi would say, oh, it's all about the context, which he, was exactly what I needed to know. I didn't really understand what he meant by context. So when people talk about AI and context, particularly, I'm going to narrow it down to like, if I run a small co-working space, what's the context of the context, Carlos?
So the context of I think the context of a small, medium or large co-working, when it comes to AI, it's similar, I would say. So the context the AI needs is it will depend obviously on the outcome that you're looking for. But if we were to narrow it down to a specific case, as we were talking about, understanding the sentiment of the community based on the messages that they send, obviously you need to fit the messages. All the communications that you have, all the tickets that the community raise with you. Also, if you have like more details around how you operate the system that you have in place, how they work, like frequent issues that come around them, that will give the model context. And then you can expand if you are looking at different use cases, like if you want to reply people when they reach out through the website, for example. So then you will need to give the context of, okay, what are you offering in your space? So it's similar to training someone that joins your team. So if you have a person doing or receiving people in your space at the front desk, you will need to tell this person or to train this person. How do you want to receive people? What is the information that they're likely to ask, and what is the information you can share? And things like that. So in that sense, obviously, it's different because it's a technology, but the process of training the technology is similar-ish to when someone uses your working makes sense.
It does. And with like attached to that is what is something, I'm going to ask you like this, which is probably the most dangerous way to ask it. What is it you see people doing when they try to automate AI? What is the thing they just should never let AI do? Because there must be people using AI and they think they're being, because I've done this just to, they think they're being really slick by saving time, but actually they're automating, and it's really obvious they're automating.
Yeah, I think, one thing that I think it's important to highlight is that these technologies, they are new. We always need to ensure that we implement them in a secure way as well, because there is a lot of noise, everything is like changing so fast. that it's easy just to say, okay, I need to implement everything. I don't think that's the right way. One thing I think people try is, or people to do is to do it like all at once, not to start with. So breaking it down in smaller problems or that you want to solve. I think it's a good approach. And what you should, I mean, it depends probably on the operator, the person. But obviously, when we were talking about having that or building that relationship with you, it's something that AI can replace. So being on the floor, talking to them, etc. Another thing that I've seen is letting AI go solo all the way. So not having a human in the loop, at least until you kind of validate how it works. I think you need a human in the loop, like checking the quality of the outcome. If you are using AI to reply to, let's say, to people that reach out through your website, at least for a few months, in my opinion, you need to be on top of those replies, because at the end of the day, you're putting your reputation as what? As a space, as an operator, and you're delegating that into a system that might not be like streamlined at the first place. So you need to refine, and you need a human in the loop at least for a while.
With that, I always appreciate it. I don't know what best practices is, we like to say, but when I go to one of those things I use, it says, we'll get an answer quickly here. And I get an answer. And what I really want is an answer. And then there's always an option to say, speak to a human. And I think that's the way, like being honest and saying, when it says like, hi, Brad here. What would you like to know about mega software? I'm like, oh God, that's so obviously not you, but saying you can get frequently asked questions here by chatting with me, because I feel like I'm doing something. And then when it says, do you want to speak to a human? I will take that option. And most things you're going to ask for service on, you use a lot, so you'll know how to do it. That's what I think we should do. Is that what you should do?
I mean, that's a good point. At the moment, I think it depends on the case. So you reach out to services where it's a simple thing that an AI can guide you through, and that's fine. So you don't need to talk to a person. Obviously, when it's something complex, then you may need to talk to a person, and you can't, as you said, the conversation kind of feels still differently when you're talking to a human, even on a chat. I mean, these systems are also like evolving quite fast. They will improve and change in that sense. And I assume also it depends on the person. Some people they prefer just getting the answer regardless of who delivered the answer or what delivered the answer. Some people prefer to have a conversation with a human. Yeah.
There's that human thing is this. Oh dear, I don't know what I want to say, but there's this kind of, I've got to say the community word, Carlos, and I get this sense, and it's a sense that people feel they can automate community more than they ever have done. And maybe we're at this level of like, we'll either become the Matrix or we'll all reconnect. Like, what is, I'm trying not to ask this question because you must have had it a million times. Like, what is community and co-working, Carlos? But then like, what's the effect of AI on there? Like in that thing? Because as you will know, like I deeply believe in the whole community thing. And I fear it's going to be further consumerized by AI, but what's your take on that?
I mean, that's a big question. I think automating community, it wouldn't be the right concept. But empowering community managers to understand their core work is better. I think in that AI can help. So when you have a community that is, I don't know, let's say you have like 200 people, 300 people in your space, it's not that to get to know everyone, to get to know where they are, how are they feeling the space, if they have any issues and such. And I think in those cases, AI can help to surface issues, to connect people as well. So at the moment, there is not much around that. You could potentially have on the system like something that help people to connect a bit better and to get to know each other better. So we followed, for example, the directory for many years, but it's a static directory. Imagine that being dynamic so that you get like virtual introductions and things like that. So I think surfacing and helping people to connect with each other, it's something that AI can help with. And it cannot automate those relationships. At the end of the day, we are humans and we need that human and face-to-face interaction. And that happened within the physical space. It happened in events. It happened on a day-to-day when you go to the kitchen to have a coffee and then you find someone, then you start talking about projects that you're working on, you realize that you have something in common, you decide to collaborate. But yeah,
I feel
that's my...
I feel that I love kitchen's the best place in the world. Kitchen and eating is the answer to everything. But
depends on the kitchen, but yeah.
well, that's a whole podcast in itself. But like, you know, I just, there are some people all in the co-working universe, and they, you know, there's like kitchens, coffee, desks, chairs, community, and it's like it's like a line item on a spreadsheet. And then there's people that have all those things, and then they just kind of believe in community, a bit like human interaction that will happen anyway. Like, I don't how, after going this far in the industry, like, what is that community thing to you at this point in time?
I mean, community to me, it's in between those people that works in your space. I remember when we started in 2012, I started like attending these conferences and such. There was this concept of serendipity, where people would talk about those casual connections that happen as we were talking, like when you have a coffee or when you are in a hot desking area and you start talking to people. I think that's kind of the basic level. Then you have a second level, which is when communities start like organizing themselves and they start like organizing their own events. They start their own projects and such. So there are different grades or levels of community, in my opinion, different spaces. And it's what to do, how the space kind of accommodate those communities, how they share those communities, and what, or how much freedom they give. Also, well, not, I don't want to use, I don't know if freedom is the right word, but how much they let those communities also to kind of grow and organize themselves. So from a random conversation in the kitchen with a coffee to a group of people organizing a hackathon on the weekend, I think there are different levels, but all that to me is, it's what I would call community.
You said serendipity at the beginning there. Do you remember Ronald from Seats to Meet? Did you ever meet him?
Who? Sorry?
Ronald from
Seats.
and
think we are on. I think we've met in one of these conferences.
I saw the, like, randomly. I thought you would, like, I think you would have met him along the way, because he's definitely been at a co-work in Europe in the old days, but had this whole serendipity conversation. I'm going to have to go and look up his book when we finish this, because he published that in like 2014, and it'd be really interesting to see. A lot of it was taking shape at that moment in time, how we would be, like, software would enable us to be in spaces together, and we'd have more time to be with each other. And then, like, because so much will be, this was even before anyone knew what ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini were. The actual last thing that's really valuable is like a face-to-face conversation, interaction, and in the context of what he was talking about, business deal, you know?
I mean, one concept we were discussing last week in another conversation is what happened if all this technology kind of enable people to work from their mobile devices, and you don't depend on a laptop, or you don't have to be sitting on a desk. how the physical space changes when you don't have desks anymore.
That is more pertinent than you may think, because I walk more and more around on my phone, and I actually get more work done on my phone now by walking and talking than I do. I use a thing called voice notes, and amazingly, do you know Contingent Works, which is in Bromley? The makers of voice notes are based in Contingent Works in Bromley, which is like a freak. Oh my goodness, how are they there? But that app I just chat into, and it works really well for the way my brain works. And I just sort of organize everything. So when I come back here to my great big computer and loads of screens, I know what I'm going to do. But until you said that just now, like, obviously if everyone's walking around in their mobile device, that's going to really dramatically change the floor plan of co-working spaces. There's one thing I want to ask you before we go, and I heard you talking to Hector about this, that dead internet theory. Is that, like, can you explain that? Because that is really dark and interesting.
That was something that I put together it was on a newsletter, and we discussed briefly. I'm not an expert on that topic, to be honest. So yeah, I don't want to say anything that is not accurate.
But what is I'm not asking you to agree with it, but what is the idea? Is it that it's just that, like, LinkedIn is just bots talking to bots? It's like a comedy ending.
Yeah, for everyone listening, yeah, that's the theory that as AI is kind of growing such, you will end up with an internet that it's only bots, AI agents, for example, talking with each other. To some degree, it's happening with content. So you have much more content that is produced by AI in different fields. You see people, for example, I was listening to this program on the radio, some people talking about research on health and such. They were buying data sets before ChatGPT because they don't have like AI generated data and such. And I heard another company recently that is source code for apps produced only by humans, like, and things like that. So, the theory of this dead internet is just that you end up with an internet that is only AI talking to the AI. And to some degree also you can feel it like sometimes with emails. So you get an email that is written by AI, and then you answer with another email that it's produced by.
It's so scary.
It is.
It's tempting as well. Like, I don't get a lot of emails, but if I had to deal with like a lot of emails every day, I would, definitely be leaning more to those lukewarm prompts in my Google Gemini. Okay. Is there anything you want to shout out before we go? Because it's definitely lunchtime here.
No, yes, for anyone interested in AI and co-working, just take a look at the newsletter. We want to basically every other week, every 2 weeks, we share some content, recipes, trends, and such around AI and co-working. Coworkings AI.com.
You're really underselling it. It is way more comprehensive than some. And when you say recipes, I just think of food. But we'll put a link.
It's more.
After you, Carlos.
Yeah, more than recipes, like some step-by-step cases that people can apply to their own day-to-day.
Ace. We're going to put a link to that in the show notes. Also, folks, there's links to European Co-working Day, which will be somewhere around where we publish this podcast. There is the LinkedIn co-working group, which is hundreds of you engaging around co-working stuff in there. And wherever you are in the world, be careful out there. It is a jungle.
Thanks so much, Bernie, for having me.
Ciao.
Bye.